and
This
I'll come off mute.
conference will now be recorded.
Well, you're actually the first slide. Well, after you already introduced the agenda, but this overview.
Sure. So with the overview of things, just to kind of talk about time frame wise, how this is coming to all of the individuals. Here we are on April 28th. We're coming close to the May 1st reporting period in our self-assessment, beginning to review the documentation. We know that for us, the reporting period goes from May 1st of 2019 until April 30th of 2020. So we're having this SWEP training just a couple of days ahead of that to give everybody some good understanding of how SWEP will be used to help facilitate the training. The expectation is on this Friday, May 1st, the development team is going to work and provide Eric with a listing of all of the qualifying projects. Eric's working to import all your questions, identify the various projects that are in there. When all of that is complete, and it could be completed within a day, it may take us till Monday, the 4th, but as soon as we get it all completed, you'll receive an email notification from Eric that says, okay, guys, everything's set up, you can begin. That then kicks off your review. You really, for the whole process, have a couple of months, so all of May and all of June, and even sort of the beginning of July to kind of finalize some stuff. But by about mid-June, you really should have been working together with your team. One of the things that Ruth's going to talk about as an enhancement is that in years past, we've individually looked at finding responses from team members and then collated those responses into the report. We've added an additional function this year where the team lead's going to work individually with the team, and you guys collectively are going to craft your individual findings. And a finding could be a successful practice, an opportunity for improvement, or even a non-compliance observation. But as a group over a particular focused topic, you guys will sit down and think through all of those projects. What did you see? And then come up with overall what your findings are based on the unique instances that you reviewed those projects. And then, of course, by the time we get to July 8th, that's when the absolute final individual and topic finding due dates are needed. So that means transmission from, we'll need them transmission from the leads, whoever that happens to be, sending the email, letting us know it's all complete. We're going to work with our team. Eric's going to be actively crafting the draft report, and we'll be continuing to move on within our process. Our ultimate goal of this effort is that we have to have a final summary of the self-assessment report to inform the FHWA audit team a month before they do their on-site visits. Their on-site visits are September 20th and 21st, or 21st and 22nd, I'm sorry. And so we need to have our summary of our self-assessment report to them by August 21st of this year. So this is the beginning legwork, and then we'll start going through the drafting, review, and development. You guys, as well as the districts, will have an opportunity to review the draft report. So no fret about any of that stuff, but let's just make sure we're all on the same page and kick this thing off well. Okay?
So as Pete mentioned, the one thing that's new this year is this topic findings report. It's under the quality and performance management, which should be available on your SWEPT menu and about midway down. And so that's actually the first thing I was going to show. So I'm going to get into SWEPT, and I'm actually using myself from last year's assessment because, as Pete said, Eric is right now working on getting those questions and things in, and then we have to wait until May 1st to get the projects for the 2020 review, so it hasn't been set up. So you'll be seeing some of mine and Brittany's stuff from last year. So like I said, you go to the quality performance management under focus, topic findings. And this part is towards the end. So what we go over later in this meeting, well, it actually feeds into this step. On the right side here, you see the review responses. So in the case of last year with this sociocultural evaluation self-assessment, you'll see comments from Brittany and from me because we were the team. Margie was our lead. And you'll see it by type, like if it was a successful practice, opportunity for improvement, or non-compliance. You see the question number and then the comments that we provided. There are some additional columns over here that you could add, like if you forget what that question is, you can turn that on, or which approval document does that apply, was that related to, you can turn that on as well. Sometimes that's needed in order to draft. And then on the left here, when you first start, this is going to be blank. We've just been using this self-assessment as our testing. So a lot of this right now is just test. So this would be blank because this is where, as a team, after we've generated all of our individual responses over here on the right, we're going to fill in information that then Eric will put into the report. And so what the information he needs for the report are this, whether or not it's a successful practice, an opportunity for improvement, non-compliance, and we give it a brief title and then a comments or general description. So to create a new one, we just click new, and another form pops up, and we can say what kind of topic finding we're going to put in, and I'm just going to do a non-compliance. That one requires the most information, so I thought I'd start with that first. A brief title, which would just briefly describe what the issue is that you're trying to put in. And then in this case, it was District 1. So I'm selecting District 1, and because it's a non-compliance, it's going to ask us to confirm that we did contact the district, what day we contacted them, and who we contacted and discussed the issue with. And then which project approval it was for. And it was, these are kind of like in a weird order. Might ask Charlie to reorder this. I just was noticing this today, that when we had our team, hopefully you guys won't have this many, but we had a whole bunch of them. Where is it?
And Ruth, I just want to add something while you're clicking around on there.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was just going to add is, so obviously, and you stated it very clearly in the beginning, which is on a non-compliance, there's sort of different things that are required that we need to make sure that we capture. You wouldn't be, identifying specific projects. You wouldn't be identifying, who in the district you contacted, if it was for a successful practice or was an opportunity for improvement. But we do treat non-compliances differently, and we have had different requirements on non-compliances from day one. So this is just being replicated here. So as you're going through it, I think it's great that we're seeing all that complication. I just don't want people to think that they also need to do that for everything else, because they won't.
Yeah, and I'll show you the other ones. Those specific fields don't even come up for those. So for the rest of them, a description is required and a recommended actions required, but the rest is not. So the policy citation would be, what your PD&E manual chapter was. It's chapter 4 now, right? And then the recommended action. And this is just a description of what we're going to do about the problem. And you click save. And that goes back. So then let me go ahead and do and again, maybe I'd search for successful practices, hit new. And in this case, it might be we saw not a specific district or approval, but we would just have a general thing to say that about the documentation, that this was a practice that we saw. So again, you put a brief title, and you can select districts here. But I'm pretty sure. Oh wait, guess what? I was wrong. Pete, you're right. It is. It does say it here that you can add it, but you don't need to. Or you can just select none, and I was expecting that to go away, but it didn't. But you can select one if you want to, but you do not have to have contacted them about that. And if it's regarding one of the approvals, you can select it, or you don't need to select that at all. You would just put your description here and the policy citation, if needed, if it applies to the practice, and then a recommended action, and save. And then the last type is opportunity for improvement. And these in general, it's pretty much the same thing. You don't need to have a district. This could be, we have an opportunity to improve our manual, for example. It doesn't have to be for a specific document. And then you fill out the other information and you can save it. And the idea of this tool is actually as a group, we would kind of be together. Our assessment teams would be together and drafting these to make sure that we've got it in a way that we all agree that this is how it should appear in the standard, in the final report.
Yeah, and this is Pete. Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the screen that you guys are looking at right now, where on the left-hand side is exactly what Ruth just went through. It'll be where your lead and you guys will sit down together after you've reviewed all your projects, and you're going to say, hey, I think we have some successful practices. Let's input them. Put them in good text, put the language you're expecting to see in the report. You can do that for as many successful practices, as many opportunities for improvement, or as many non-compliances as your team found that are relevant to your focus area. On the right-hand side of that exact same screen is kind of a quick lookup that allows you guys to see your own specific reviews for successful practices or opportunities for improvement or non-compliances that you individually saw on your own project. So right when you're getting ready to do a successful practice, you can quickly search on all the successful practices that everybody in your group identified, and then you can see what you all said, and then see if you can't come up with one as a group. And you can do that for each opportunity for improvement, each successful practice, each non-compliance observation. So that was the big improvement here, was being able to get all the information into one interface that the team could see what each other said on the right-hand side, and then collectively you guys work together to develop the left-hand side, which is, as a group, what are the successful practices we see? What are the opportunities that we see? What are the non-compliances that we see? And then you guys craft that information together with, exactly like Ruth said, the outcome is, this is the language we're going to put into the report. So we just want to make sure that it is reflected in a way that you guys feel best captures what your intent is. Thanks, Ruth.
Yeah, so when we're all done, you'll notice they all say draft, and that means, because we're, as a team, we're working on this, it's still in progress. We don't have to finish it all in one sitting, but when we are finished, we click finalize, and that updates the database so that we know that it's ready for Eric. And then he can come in and make a Excel spreadsheet and download all this using the Excel button at the top. And we can too, but that's primarily for him to export it so he can put it in the final report.
Yeah, Ruth, I just had a quick comment. So this year, as Ruth is indicating, I'm just going to be downloading the left side, which is actually what comes out of the group discussion activity and what you all record there. And while Ruth and Pete are on the presentation, just wanted to be sure you have to have recommended actions for non-compliance and for opportunity for improvement. You don't have to have recommended actions for successful practices. Pete, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood so that they wouldn't be trying to think of recommended actions for successful practices. And the only other thing is, and I think this probably
that's a good point. I was just going to say that's a good point. And on top of it, if there are recommended actions for a successful practice, that's good for us to capture as well.
Right. And the only other thing is you have the left screen and the right screen. So those sides, those sides are not going to be one-on-one. There will be projects reviewed that don't result in any kind of finding. And I just kind of wanted to make that clear that as you go through the projects, you have to make a call. I mean, either it's compliant or not, but if there's a finding, it's like based upon, it's going to go into this discussion, every project. So if you have 50 projects, you don't have to have 50 findings. That's just the clarification I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, that's great. Because, in fact, there were examples of this where Brittany and I had very common findings and, or responses individually, but it came out, that's just one thing. And the finding was repeated on multiple projects. So that's why it's really helpful to have those responses there beside it, but the end result is a synthesis on the left. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because that's basically it. It's pretty simple. And I hope that you find it useful. I think it'll save us a lot of time in reviewing and editing the final report and hopefully save Eric some heartache on trying to figure out what we meant. Okay, if there's no questions, that is it for the folks that have been through this before. Next, I'm going to just show you how to find your assignments and record your individual reviewer findings. Go back to Swept. And again, we're going to be looking under the quality and performance management menu. And once you have an assignment, you will see an option for self-assessment assignments. And that's where you go. And on this page, it's going to list all your assignments. You're not going to have this stuff at the top because this is just on our stage test server, so I can look at from different perspectives. But the top of this has an assignment status by project. And this lists all the projects that came out of the assignment, all your criteria that we've been developing, and hopefully you won't have 49 because that was a lot, at least having to look at all the documents in detail. And then under that, there's a section of assignments. So, a project might have multiple approvals that meet your criteria. So the project document approval date is what the uniqueness is for an assignment, and of course the topic. So it tells you what the project is, what class of action, and the approval date and the topic. And you're looking for a status of either not started or draft. Not started means you haven't even opened it yet, and draft means you've opened it and you've started writing your comments. And generally what we do is individually, we just get it to a draft stage, and then we sit down as a team and discuss our responses to make sure that we are looking consistently at the results. We may not have the same finding, and that's okay. That's why we have multiple people looking at it, but we do want to be sure that how we're judging something or how we're assessing something is consistent. And so, like in our case, Margie, Brittany, and I got together after we did our individual reviews, and then just each compared reviews and made sure that, well, if I didn't find something, maybe Brittany found it somewhere, and then you know, we were able to resolve some things. And so it was in draft until we all got together and then decided to make them final. So when it's draft or not started, you hit that respond button and you'll come up with a little spreadsheet like form here. It asks the question and you'll recognize your questions because that's the same format that was on your spreadsheet that you handed into Eric. And it'll tell you what the source is, what the document standard is. And so you answer yes or no in this case, or not applicable. And then is it compliant? Yes or no, or not applicable. And then here in these boxes, they're just little text boxes. You can write successful practice, opportunity for improvement, non-compliance observation, recommended action, and then comments. The comments are very important as a team because this will help you remember why you said what you said. The comments aren't used in any of the final reports or anything other than helping us as a team come up with topic findings. But sometimes, like we will even put a page, like I found this document on page 3 of this file, you know, just so that when we're together looking at the results, it was really helpful when we had those details. And other than that, these boxes is where you would type in your, whether it's a successful practice, an opportunity for improvement, non-compliance, or recommended action. You don't need, if it's compliant, you don't need any of this. It's only if it applies. If it was non-compliant, you would need to include the non-compliance observation and recommended action. And then the same for opportunity for improvement. You would need a recommended action. And once you're done, you save all as draft, or if you're with your group, you save all as found. When it says save all, it just means all of these boxes are being saved. And then once you've saved it, it comes back to the form that shows my assignments. And I used to have 2 up here that were draft and everything else was done, but now I've completed one's still in draft, and the rest were already completed. I mean, the whole thing was already completed for real, but I'm on the test server, so I faked it. And then the same thing for the other one. And what this does is this gives you a quick look at where you are. You can sort by any of these. So like if I just wanted to sort completed, so I'd know which ones I'm still doing or draft out, then I would get those numbers. And then again down here, it updated that one to say it was final. And again, I can sort all these just like you can on any table in Swept. And then I can respond to the next one. and update that. But that's basically it. Does anybody have any questions? They can be exported as Excel if you want to. This page can. Actually, let me see. I don't remember if this page can. Oh wait, I just clicked the wrong thing. Daggone it. Sorry. Went to the, well, I guess that was a good thing to show you. Clicking on that link takes you to the project page. That's where you would find your documents that you're reviewing. If you want to go to the respond page, you go down to the bottom. And I guess if you wanted to, you could export this, but it would just be that one response, I believe. Navigate back. When you save, it takes you back automatically, but you can also still navigate here. You can open up your menu, close it. I like having it closed for this stuff because these tables are pretty wide. It's nice to have a wide screen as well. And then once everybody's done with all their assignments, get back together again and use the tool that we went over earlier to do your focus findings. There is another report here that you'll have access to that we added this last year. Now that we have the focus findings, this one may not be quite as useful, but what it does is it takes all of the comments that were provided and it just puts it in a more of a report format instead of a table like on the focus topic findings report. So it's organized by topic and by question, successful practices, response comments. This was our first attempt last year at trying to pull everyone's comments together to help us develop findings. So you may still find this useful, but it is there if you want it. Okay, and that is all I've got for the demo. Any questions?
Hey, this is Mike. I have a question. Is it possible to go over again what's required, or are you guys planning to incorporate that into the SWEP tool? Like, so you said there was, if there's a non-compliance, then you have to also provide the, I'm forgetting now, but if you go back to the form, I can reference it, the boxes where you fill it out.
Yeah, and when she's going back there, Mike, just to kind of answer your question, we'll make sure that it's very clear on the form that if something's required, it shows up as required. We'll make sure that if it's not required, it doesn't look like it is. One of our developers, Charlie, who actually helped put all this together, is actually on the call, so I think he's hearing this in real time, but Ruth and I will follow up with him after. Because I did find as we were talking through it and as she was going through the form, it wasn't totally obvious, and I think we can make it more obvious.
Yeah, she's almost back there, so I can show you. Yeah, so here you went through it, but like you were saying in these boxes, like if you find a non-compliance, you have to have a recommended action. And then if you have opportunity for improvement, you also have to put a recommended action. But then there's a certain circumstances where you didn't have to fill out, like if it is compliant, then you don't have to fill out any. So I don't know if you can integrate that somehow, like, but just so that we're all on the same page.
I think we could, and that's partly what this training is, but we could put some text on here in terms of when it's recommended versus required. Like, or if you said it's not compliant, we could.
Could you
somehow
highlight the
indicate,
boxes, like
highlight
put
it.
like
Yeah,
an
or put a
orange
red
box
asterisk,
around two
or put a
or
red
something?
asterisk that, we tend to put a red asterisk. I know that I was also thinking on the topic findings, we needed to do that as well.
Exactly. I think actually on the topic finding, it's actually probably even more important.
Yeah.
Just so folks can have the right context when they're going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I think
important thing is recommended action. So a successful practice, you just need that is the only thing that's required, is that you describe what the successful practice is. But you could put a recommended action. The other two, recommended action is required.
okay.
And it's not documented here. I think we would put it in our comments, but as a matter of practice and procedure, if there's a non-compliant, we are required to contact the districts and give them a heads up and give them an opportunity to make the correction. For example, it may be that they have a file at the district and they forgot to upload it into SWEPT. So then it's not really non-compliant at that point. But that's why we contact them and make sure that they agree that, oh yeah, I did not have that file, that should be non-compliant. And so putting that in your comments would be helpful, especially when you're doing the topic findings.
Right. And if I could add, Bruce,
before, isn't it, Eric? Did we put that in our
if I
comments,
could
or
add,
did we put it under the non-compliance observation that we contacted them?
if it's non-compliant, you mean contacting the district? I think that's probably under comments. But I wanted to add that we did cover in our definitions in the other training, and I'll be sure to send that PowerPoint out again, because it has those three. But in past years, even with those definitions, we kind of adopted those definitions of non-compliance, opportunity for improvement, which Federal Highway just calls observation. They don't put the opportunity part on there. And successful practices from Federal Highway audit definitions. I think our process has evolved, and it's an extremely important part of it, that you still need to talk it out with your lead. And this year, even in addition to that, the team will get to discuss, because there are nuances, and you might think that you've landed on a non-compliance. And when you talk it out with your lead, there may be something, that you didn't see, or maybe that does not apply, and you maybe thought that it did. So we have those definitions, but I think even more important, when you do come to a finding, kind of individually, you're looking at your own projects and you come to a finding, it's extremely important to talk it through with your team lead. And then this year, I think the entire team kind of gets to discuss it. And I think that with that kind of three-step approach, looking at the definition so that you can kind of come up with your own finding, and then talking it through with your lead, and then talking it through with the team, what comes out of that in this new part of the tool, will be very strong. So I just wanted to add that.
And Mike, what was actually, last year was my first time, and what was most helpful for me is we started working on these things on our own, and then after about a week, we came together and we talked about it, like what we were finding in terms of successful practices, opportunity for improvement, non-compliance, recommended actions. And in many cases, there wasn't anything other than our comments, because they were following the procedures. It was fine, but it wasn't something to, like, oh, this is really something we want to let other districts know to emulate. And, the reason being was because everybody was doing it already. So we didn't highlight it as a successful practice. So how the group defines these things is important too. And again,
So
just
where's-
putting,
oh.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to suggest that I think in the past, and this is Katasha, just in case you don't recognize my voice, but in the past, we've also, had some potential successful practices that were suggested, which were really more about convenience of the reviewer versus an actual successful practice. So maybe one district really did a great job of organizing their files, or, maybe, separated out, like, we'll just say a natural resource evaluation from a consultation letter. And it was really easy for the team to find the information they were looking for to support their self-assessment review. But that in itself is not a best practice most of the time, unless there's some other requirement or some other thing that you're looking for. So just be mindful of things that just make it more convenient for you as a reviewer. Don't really make it necessarily a best practice.
That's a good point.
I have a question.
Major.
Hi, Ruth. For recommended actions, since we're discussing it and kind of along the lines of what Katasha just said, like what kind of information are you guys, what are we, is it, first off, are we doing it individually, recommended actions? Should we attempt to draft the recommended action individually, or is it a team activity? And then what kind of information? Because like the topic we have now as the engineers is the PER signed and sealed, or any other engineering document signed and sealed. A recommended action for that is do it, or comply with comply with the PD&E manual. Most recommended actions to me sound like comply with the PD. They should have complied with the PD&E manual. Are you guys looking for innovative ideas? I'm just further.
So this is Pete. So what we've traditionally done in the past for recommended actions is we think kind of globally on what recommended actions are. In some cases, we've recognized that we needed to clarify some language in our PD&E manual chapters to see that sometimes they weren't necessarily interpreted exactly the way we intended as authors up here in central office, or maybe we left things ambiguous to, up for interpretation and stuff. And sometimes we needed to have meetings with like district leadership to kind of convey the importance of certain things. So depending really on what the issue is, you may have different recommended outcomes. It could be, making sure everybody understands. It could be updating a chapter. It could be putting together a training. It could be a litany of things. Yours is kind of cut and dry for some stuff, but I'm sure you guys can come up with, if you can think of, hey, we're starting to see consistently people aren't doing this. Well, why aren't they doing it, and how do we get them to do it? First, are they supposed to? If the answer is yes, they're supposed to, then why? Root cause. Why aren't we getting it done? Is it the way SWEP is set up? Is it the timing of when they actually get these documents approved? Is nobody checking before Jason signs off on the approval that the final document's there and that there isn't a draft watermark on there? Like, kind of what consistently in your review is kind of the root cause for the issue, or are they just not uploading it at all? So I think based on what you guys do for a review, you may come up with different potential recommended actions based on kind of what you're seeing and whether or not there's any consistency to it.
Okay, that sounds good.
And it's probably worth talking about with your team too. Like I said, try a few, for a week. After a week, meet together and see if you're coming up with consistent things and what might be helpful. I know some, in the past, updates to PD&E manuals were made, language clarification, sometimes a form on SWEPT having something clearer or validating that something's attached, or kind of some of the outcomes.
Okay, yeah, thank you guys. I guess it's kind of just how do we think they could become more compliant, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? These are great questions, great discussion.
Hey Ruth, this is Tu. Do we have any idea of how many projects we're going to look at in terms of type 1s, type 2s, EAs, reevals, and so forth?
Well, each group, which group are you on?
I'm on the tribal consultation.
So Matt sent us the criteria. Stephanie was actually working on those queries today.
Okay.
The type 1s, there were just like 2 of them, I think. 3 of them, 3 type 1s that he gave us. And then the other ones were just some queries that I haven't seen the results of those queries, but it was really specific. So I don't think.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I had to guess, I think it's less than 20 total based on what you guys
Okay.
were looking at.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, I know with the cooperating agency one, the group I'm on, it was less than 10 as of a week ago. You know, maybe a whole bunch of projects went through that had cooperating agencies this week, but I don't think so. And then I think, Mike, didn't you guys for the biological, are you on the biological assessment one? That one, there weren't a whole bunch either. Okay.
We had like 22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Somebody
weird. I
else.
got a notification saying that my audio was disconnected, so it was weird. Anyways, but yeah, I think we have like 22 for our group.
And just so you guys know, those that have been around for a bit, in many cases, folks had, you know, plus 50 or more in their group. So I think folks are going to be doing pretty well this year.
And then the important thing is just scheduling your time, spreading it out so you're not waiting until the last minute to have to do a whole bunch of them. Do a few a week or something.
Ruth, I thought of another question. Is it the expectation that we would be contacting the district about non-compliance findings prior to our focus findings with our group? Or would that happen after we've met with the team lead and we're doing our finalized version?
This is Pete. What I would tell you is the first time you guys think you have a non-compliance, go sit down and talk to your lead, describe the project, describe the outcome. This is what I'm seeing, and get direction from whoever the lead is, because we want to contact the district as early as possible, because you want to find out whether or not this really is a non-compliance, or perhaps there's an opportunity for the district to, you know, satisfy the non-compliance by providing some information. But I think your first step should be, if you think you have a non-compliance, go talk to your lead, discuss it in detail with your lead, and then follow their guidance. So that by the time you guys get to the point where you're crafting the ultimate findings, you know this is a finding that you know should exist. You've done the due diligence.
Okay, cool. I just figured that all of the potential questions in my head that I should, all of the issues, I should spit them out.
This is a good time for it. Because we got the leads, we got Pete, we got computer. We can figure it out. Okay, if there are no more questions, that is the end of the training. Thank you very much. And if you have any problems getting into the tool or using it, just let me know or let Steph know, and we're happy to help you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.